Are you ready for rapid fire?
Are we already there?
We're there.
Oh, my goodness. I was just getting warmed up. I was going to
Let's
start recycling some more arguments that you've given me in the past that I refuted.
Fill in the blank, Vince. DJ Brown is returning for his 6th season for the Irish, and that's blank.
Great for depth. That's great for depth. If he's starting, either he has taken a massive step forward or safety's in trouble. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. He's a great depth piece. He's a kid that's going to put it all on the line for you. I mean, he's a consummate Notre Dame guy, but he can't be a starter on an elite defense. He can be a role player for you. He can have a role, so you need him for depth. But if he's starting, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, and I mean they lack depth at safety. You know,
Right.
like because they lose some guys back there. They lose Houston Griffith, obviously. They lose Brandon Joseph. Did they lose anybody else back there? Oh yeah. I said Houston Griffith already, right? Yeah. So yep. I mean, you know, so they obviously lose them. But this is a guy who's played 45 games over the last 4 years. Now a lot of it's been on special teams, but we've seen a lot more of him in the back end the last couple years, and the guy ended up being the 4th leading tackler on the team this year. So it's some good, valuable experience that you need. You know, Xavier Watts really came on strong at the end of the year, and now you're going to add Thomas Harper back there as well, and maybe even Clarence Lewis, you know, kind of speculating on whether he ends up being a safety as well. So, yeah, I mean, you need some numbers back there, and for this season, I think it's a really good choice. And I had seen that, you know, like maybe he was thinking about not coming back, and it really surprised me, unless he just decided, hey, I don't want to play football anymore. But obviously, that's not the decision he made.
He could have made a Braden Lindsay decision to hang it up and, you know, enter the workforce and all that. And I would have. I feel like I'm kind of, you know, like 50-50 either way. If he would have gone, I'd be like, okay. If he would have stayed, okay. Like it doesn't. This is
also a 3-star guy who's worked his way up the ladder and got himself into a position where he's been able to be a contributor for the last few years.
I mean, it's great for the
solid
depth.
Contributor.
It's great for depth. I have absolutely zero problem with that. Like I said, I'm just worried if he becomes the starter, unless he's really elevated his game from now until then. But I feel like we know who DJ Brown is at this point. You know,
Brent is concerned. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Brent is concerned about the safety position. How concerned should Brent be about the safety position, do you think?
It is a minor concern. I'm not going to say it's not a concern at all. That would be silly. It's a concern. I feel very confident with Xavier Watts having another offseason and being a starter at one of the safeties. I feel very comfortable with Ramon Henderson being one of the safeties. I don't know that Ramon Henderson is a starter, though. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you need 3 safeties. You need 3. Okay, so what combination are you going to get back there? I feel like it's Xavier Watts, it's Ramon Henderson, and who is the 3rd guy? Because Brian is speculating that the new kid is going to start at nickel. Right. So he's almost like a safety / corner, right? So if he's going to start at nickel, you still need that 3rd safety. And so I feel like that part is wide open.
Well, but the other part of that is, you know, like, does Jaden Mickey show progress from one season to the next? Is nickel a spot where if you need another guy at the back end where Harper can go play safety? I wouldn't want them to have to go out and try to bring in another safety in the portal, you know, especially like when you start to look at numbers on the roster and not knowing exactly who's staying and who's going in some spots and stuff like that.
I would feel really good if Clarence Lewis was the 3rd safety.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best solution right there.
I don't think that they're even considering that right now from what I can get from Brian, but that would be, to me, that triumvirate of safety, Henderson, Watts, and Lewis, I feel really good about that 3-way safety. And then, you know, we talked about it before. You got 2 shutdown corners, and you've got a kid at nickel that's got a ton of experience under his belt at Oklahoma State, playing against offenses that all they want to do is throw the ball. So I feel really good about that rotation moving forward if that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I concur. Got a basketball question. Irish AJ.
Oh, here we go.
Asking me, he says, I know you're on the women's basketball side of things, but Mike Brey is on his last legs is Mike Brey on his last legs as coach. I don't think I've seen the team this poor in a long time.
Oh,
The
they have
program
been.
is in bad shape right now.
I mean, there was a pretty good stretch there where they didn't make the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, they've been this bad before, and I feel like as long as I've known you, we've had this conversation.
About Brey?
Yeah. I mean, how
that's probably true.
You know what I
Been
mean?
going on for a while, hasn't it?
We have this conversation all the time until I hear otherwise. He's not on his last legs. He's going to leave whenever he wants to leave. I mean, there was a period there where they were at least always making the NCAA tournament, and then they dipped below that for quite a while. They made it back last year. Doesn't look real good for this year at the moment. So I don't know that he's on his last legs, but I just don't know that anybody cares.
The funny thing is, a few years back, and this has been, gosh, it's going on around 10 years or so right now, where, talking to some people, who were really connected, there was some talk at that point. Again, this has been about 10 years that, like, if something didn't change really quickly with the men's basketball program, that Brey might have been out the door at that point. And then within like a year or two is when they go on back-to-back Elite Eight runs. And that obviously that saved him, gave him, reinvigorated things. And, the problem is he has coasted on that for 6 years now.
Yeah.
At this point. And the one NCAA appearance last year, it obviously is not happening this year. And it's tough, and like what the conversation that was passed along to me at that point was they needed, as an athletic department, they needed that men's basketball program producing more revenue. And the comparison that I had heard at that point was like, look at Louisville. They're able to produce money from both football and basketball. Louisville is obviously still a basketball school.
Sure.
But, and they have a different arena and things are a little bit different down there. But the point was they weren't going to, as an athletic department, they weren't going to settle for half-empty arenas most of the time. And that's what you're back to right now. It's pretty quiet over there quite often. And so that's what I wonder is like, is that going to force a hand here pretty soon? Because getting back to the tournament last year, there was zero momentum off that this year, unfortunately, with so many veterans back from that team.
And it's disappointing. I mean, they basically had the same team for the last 4 years. I mean, it's the same guys. All these kids started as freshmen, or the core of this team. They all started as freshmen, and so all those kids are going to be gone next year. Frankly, I would never call for somebody's job, but at the same time, I mean, what better time to make a change than when you're going to have a ton of change on the team anyway? And if he does stick around, he's like, well, they're all young. You got to give me some time, that whole argument. So then you've bought a few more years, and there's just, I don't know, there's just no excitement around this program. I mean, you're obviously.
And that was the word that was kind of used, back at that point. But the excitement that was brought was because of those back-to-back Elite Eights. Again, that, is following one with another Elite Eight, people bought in at that point.
Right.
Then, you still made a tournament or whatever. But then, like the Matt Farrell, Bonzie Colson year when Colsey hurt his foot and Farrell was out for a while and they ended up in the NIT, that was really the start of the downslide, the backslide that year.
That seems like so long ago, John.
I know. Like, seems forever ago, but it was only like 5 or 6 years or something like that.
Well, let's go from a program with zero excitement around it to a program with a ton of excitement around it.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about some women's hoops real quick, Sean. And obviously, I've been following the women's team, mainly because you are the man with the plan of the play-by-play, and they got off to a bit of a rough go in North Carolina. It's like they grabbed the men's film and they decided that they're wanted to repeat that. But where Notre Dame is ranked number 5 right now. This is only their
They dropped to 7. They dropped to 7.
They dropped
today.
to 7. Okay,
yeah.
Today. Okay, They were 5 in the game yesterday. During the game,
4 in the game. They dropped to 7.
No, they had 5 on TV. That's all.
Well,
I know what they're going off of. Whatever.
ACC Network's been wrong more than once.
Well, that's your fact there. So after the loss to North Carolina, obviously it's a conference loss. Where's this team going? Like, where do you see this team going? Obviously, everybody has their off night shooting, but where is this team right now?
Yeah, yesterday was just such.
It's weird.
Never seen anything like that. You know, you have to go back basically to Neil Ivy's first season to really see anything like that. It was just it's. You obviously hope it's a one-off, and I think it's a one-off. And I wonder, and I kind of asked Neil Ivy before the game. You played 2 games, you came back from Christmas, you played 2 games, boom, boom, had a close one against Miami, and then you just blew the doors off Boston College.
Yeah.
Boston College, by the way, won a couple of impressive games last week after getting beaten 85-47 by Notre Dame on New Year's Day. But Notre Dame goes a full week then because they had their conference bye come early, and they just looked much more lethargic than any time that I have seen them in the last 2 years. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping. And the other thing is North Carolina, even though Notre Dame had a solid defensive effort against them, I mean, North Carolina was kind of, like a dog backed into a corner. Like they had lost 4 games in a row. And you heard me make the comment on the air. I wasn't just putting perfume on a pig when I was trying to sell that was still a good North Carolina team. That those 4 losses.
They were ranked in the top 20-ish. I mean, they're a good team.
They were still in the top. They were still, I think, they were 18 in one poll, 22 in the other. They had lost 4 in a row, but they were by a combined total of 22 points, and 2 of them were to ranked teams.
Yeah.
So like that was still a quality team that they saw yesterday. Their zone defense gave Notre Dame fits. The biggest head scratcher of the whole thing is Notre Dame has been in the top like 3 or 4 in 3-point shooting all season. They shoot 2 for 22 against North Carolina. They couldn't hit the threes. Yep. And Larry just said it, 2 for 22.
That's crazy.
That's the biggest thing. And it's like, that's what I have no answer for, because it's one thing to miss some shots, but it's another, like when many of the shots were not hitting anything. They were not hitting iron. They were not hitting backboard. It was definitely the worst shooting performance I've seen in the last 2 years from a very good team. I don't think that we'll see something like that again. I'm willing to say it's going to be a one-off. They play Wake Forest this week, and then they go to Syracuse next weekend. I think that they'll ultimately I think it's actually going to be good for them to get back into the rhythm. You're playing twice a week now, and just get going, because that's what it's going to be the rest of the season now.
You made a reference during the game, and I don't want to belabor the point here, but you made a reference during the game that like maybe the depth perception was off because it was just I don't know. What did you hear any kind of talk of that, like after the game, off the record? Like, were they just not seeing the basket very well?
And that's, I did wonder that. And I asked Sherelle Allen, the assistant who did the post game with me last night, and she said some of the players were talking about that during the shoot around. Like that could be a thing. She obviously didn't want to make that an excuse, but 2 for 22 stands out, especially again, when you're one of the top 3 or 4 3-point shooting teams in the conference. They dropped to 5th after going 2 for 22. They'd been in the top 3 and 4 all season. So I think that there could be something to that. Again, we'll find out as they get rolling here a little bit. I've never seen them come close to shooting that bad from 3-point range.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. How about some more football? We got the college football national championship game tonight. Scale of 1 to 10. How much more strongly do you feel today compared to a year ago at this time that Notre Dame is closer to winning a national championship?
Well, if I'm being honest, I felt pretty good around this time last year about a lot of things. I mean, I realized they had lost the Fiesta Bowl, but that was a very winnable game. I mean, they beat themselves in that game. I mean, let's be honest. They should have won that game. And you looked at who was leaving, who was coming, all of those different things. And I felt pretty good about it. I mean, they were in a New Year's 6 in a season where, yes, record-wise, they got to where they got, but you felt like they were able to take another step. There's obviously a ton of momentum around Marcus Freeman at this point. This time last year, you were looking at a brand new staff and all of those different. We didn't even know who the defensive coordinator was going to be at that time. So, I mean, you have to take all that into account. But I really did not anticipate them taking a step back. So, from a scale of 1 to 10, I feel stronger about it, but not by much. I got to get up like a 4 or 5 because I was very
and that's
confident.
4 or 5 more, not just like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm more confident, but I was pretty confident this time last year. I mean, I'll be honest with you, still with all the questions unanswered that we now have answers to, I was still fairly confident. So I don't have a ton more confidence now because it was already fairly high.
Yeah, they're trending still in the right direction. The recruiting is the big thing. And, again, like people can bemoan losing a couple of the top guys in the class, but it was still a really good class. They're good. It's chock full of talent. They're already working, toward 2024, keep stacking these classes on top of each other. So that's kind of what I'm looking at more than just what's going on the field is how this recruiting is going. They're still working in the right direction. And now when like for this year, I at the very, like if you ask me right now, scale to 1 to 10, will they be in the college football playoff this year? I'd go a 7 with that, just like being in the playoff. So I feel fairly confident, and again, we started off the show floor and the ceiling talking about how, how good this team can be. I think it's definitely a college football playoff caliber team, especially when you add an experienced quarterback like they've got. But now, can they win a playoff game this year? Like when I look at this roster and I stack it up, I wouldn't say that it is appreciably better than either of the other two college, playoff teams that they've had before. So in terms of, again, now I'm just talking about this year with that, but as it pertains to the future, I think I just saw somebody say it. Yeah, Anthony said it. Like our chances with a good quarterback. To me, it still comes down to that. Like,
sure,
whether it's Buckner or Minchie or Carr, is one of those guys going to be like the flag bearer type quarterback? I think that's what it's going to take ultimately for Notre Dame to actually win a national championship. So I'm kind of along with you. Like I said, I feel strongly they can be in the playoff, but in terms of winning a national championship, I'm with you in that 4 or 5 range in terms of more confidence now compared to a year ago, just because, again, like there's some things that we've got to still see on the field to make sure that this coach, is past that.
sure.
And that's just going to be an aberration and not a regular occurrence.
Yep, absolutely.
So what do you think about them playing the national championship game on Monday nights? We again, championship game is tonight.
It sucks. I mean, I hate it. I don't even know anywhere way else to put it because I watch it every year and it's always on a Monday. And so I always stay up too late and then I get terrible sleep and I'm worthless the next day at work. And now it's going to be 2 nights in a row because I stayed up and watched the Lions and the Packers last night.
And you're just getting back into to work as well.
Today was my first day back to work. And now I'm going to do it all over again tonight. And not only am I going to do it all over again, but I'm going to do it so everybody can watch me do it over on the CFP Nation site. And we're going to do a watch party. So it's like I can't really get out of there early, go watch it in bed or anything like that. So, I hate it. I understand why they have to do it because the NFL is always going to be more popular than college football. There's just no way to shake it. That's the way it's always going to be. And so the NFL has Saturday night. They've got Sunday night. And so what does college football have to do? They have to move it to Monday. And there's been people that have said, screw the NFL, make them be all on Sunday so that college football can be on Saturday. I get that. But back in the day, everything was done by January 1st.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, this is college football's problem. So you got to be on a Monday. You don't have a choice.
And it's going to expand even more now as well. And Michael's right. They have been doing it, since they started playing it. But I agree with what you're saying. In a perfect world, they would be able to play the national championship game, say at 6:00 on a Saturday night. College football is played on Saturday. You play the national championship game on Saturday. But they just what you're talking about. They've got to separate it because the NFL and everything else. So it sucks. We're old, whatever. Nobody
I
cares.
know.
The ratings seem to be getting stronger every
Okay.
year. So that's good, just in terms of overall. How do you compare it though to Super Bowl night for you? Because Super
Ooh.
Bowl is played on a Sunday, and all the things that you're talking about, like people still have to get up and go to work on Monday as well. And there's always been people who kick around, hey, should the day after the Super Bowl be President's Day or something like that? So you've got a holiday. How does this compare to Super Bowl Sunday for you, the
Well,
college football championship?
the difference is you get all day to work up to it. You're not at work. I mean, most people, I should say, aren't at work on Super Bowl Sunday. So it's like they have the whole day to themselves. College football's national championship does not have the whole day to themselves. Most people go to work during the day and, you come home and you do your thing and then you watch the game. So it's like, I don't know. It's different. Super Bowl Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. This isn't CFB Monday. Like that. That's not a thing. I don't know. It just feels different. You there?
I am now.
Oh, okay.
Somehow I came back. I was like looking. It's like I'm still connected. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, kind of what you were saying. Yeah, like when the Super Bowl is on Sunday and it's like you got all day, you kind of kick around, you get your food ready, your snacks and your beverages and whatever else. Monday is just it's Monday. It's like back to work, and then you come home and you watch the game, and then you got to get up and do it all over again the next day. And Brent is absolutely right. Having lived
Oh,
on the
yeah.
West Coast for a year, you get your sleep. That was like that year I lived where Brent lives in Monterey. We would roll out of bed on Sunday morning, 10 a.m., and start watching the NFL. It was
Good point.
beautiful, baby. And the
That's a
Super
good
Bowl
point.
parties are earlier and everything else.
That's a really, really good point. You always get a good night's sleep. You're not wrong. Not wrong. And that's why I will say there's one of the reasons that I hate living on East Coast time is because they make everything so freaking late
I
so that
know.
they can get everybody else involved on the West Coast. That's why baseball doesn't start till 8:30 or like, oh my God, we have to wait till 8:30 to start a game. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Still a big game though. Georgia,
It's a huge
TCU.
game.
Yeah.
It starts in like 19 minutes.
Man, are we getting that close already? We better hurry this up.
I didn't realize it started at 7:30. I thought it was an 8:30 start.
And that's actually was. Could you try again? Oh, thank you, Siri. So Georgia's minus 13.5. Who you taking in this thing tonight?
I have not bet a dime on this game just because I don't know enough about the teams to really feel good about it. But if I would take TCU plus the 13.5. I think Georgia's the better team, but TCU hasn't been the better team a couple different times, and it's always either close or they win. So I just feel like TCU is going to keep it close enough that they'll be inside the 13.5.
Yeah, I think so too. And I looked at the history. Georgia has won by at least that many 11 times this year, but they're just 7-7 against the spread. And TCU, I guess because they've been a Cinderella, they're 10-3-1 against the spread. So they've done very well. I like them to cover that 13.5 as well. The over-under is 62.5 points. I went over on that one. I think there's going to be a lot of points tonight. I think TCU is at least going to be able to hang around in this game for a while. Georgia gave up some shots downfield. And I saw today, I think Aaron Taylor tweeted this. TCU has 21 plays of 50-plus yards this season.
Wow.
Georgia's defense has only allowed 6 plays of that many yards. But, they gave up some plays last week in the semifinal to Ohio State. And I think that if TCU is going to be able to score, it's going to be with Duggan going downfield. So I like some points in this game.
I do too. I think, if we've seen anything from the college football playoff games and all, points are going to be scored. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. Defense will get you to the games. Offense will win it for you. You're going to have to score points. And I think there's going to be a bunch of points. I do. I would take the over as well. I think that's a solid bet.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Houston beat the Colts and cost themselves the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so funny. They were guaranteed. All they had to do was go in and lose the game, and they were winning the entire game. And they ended up winning by a point. A point. I mean, it's Lovie Smith's last laugh because then he got fired. Like he goes out and wins a game and then gets canned.
Here's what I wonder. Okay, because it's not just that they won, and not just that they won by a point, it's how they won. Because first they're playing their starters in this game.
Yes.
You're in contention to get the #1 pick in the NFL draft, and you're out there playing your starters in this game. The Colts have Sam Ehlinger out there, and the Texans have got their starter, Davis Mills, who's, it's not a Pro Bowler, but it's still their starting quarterback. He's thrown for over 3,000 yards this year. He throws a 28-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 20 with 50 seconds left in the game. A 28-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 20. So then they're down by a point after they score this touchdown. So rather than kick the extra point to tie the game, which they did at the start of the season, they tied the Colts, if you remember, to open the season. So that's why they had their tie. They go for 2 and they get it and they win by 1 point. So it's like, my question is, did Lovie Smith know before the game that he was getting fired? Because like everything he did was a coach who was trying to stick it to the organization on the way out the door.
I think it's hilarious.
Because there's no organizationally, this is a golden ticket. It's the #1 pick in the draft, like to do everything that they did, to go for 2 if they would have kicked the extra point, they still would have got and tied the game. They still would have got the #1 pick. All they needed was a tie, and they kicked it and won, and they give up the #1 pick. So I'm convinced Lovie knew.
I didn't even know that that's how the game ended. If I'm being honest, I knew they lost the game by a point. I didn't realize he forewent the extra point. Like, what in the world? What? I think that's so funny because now I'm convinced that he knew. I 100%.
He had to have. He had to have.
Absolutely.
And if not, he deserved to lose his job. Like if he didn't know and he did all those things, they win by 1 point. And that's the difference between the Colts and Texans this season. 1 point, because again, they tied the first time. They very easily could have tied the second time. And the sorry thing is, I think the Colts were trying to, but they were playing their backups. Houston, you got to play your backups, and you definitely cannot go for 2 at the end. I'm sorry, it's the #1 pick in the draft. Yeah, and Jeff Saturday lost the last 7 games of the season after that big win over the Raiders.
Big win.
Yep. You talked about staying up and watching that game last night, Lions and Packers, and I was very entertained by that game after I got home from North Carolina. Which is better, Mr. Bears fan, getting the #1 pick in the draft or seeing Aaron Rodgers and the Packers knocked out of the playoffs in prime time?
Look, I don't even know what it feels like to have a first-round pick recently as a Bears fan.
That's
so having the #1 pick is like surreal. But seeing Aaron Rodgers lose last night, the way that they lost, and just watching him look like he was about ready to start pouting as well, I'm sorry, that makes up for it for me. I mean, that's so much better. I am a spiteful human being, and watching him lose,
if nothing else is true, is spiteful.
Is so glorious in so many ways. I mean, look, it's great that the Bears have the #1 pick. They'll probably trade it for draft picks and whatever, which is fine. They need them. They need all the help they can get. But watching Aaron Rodgers lose and then talking about how he doesn't know if he's going to be back as a Packer again, he might retire. Like, oh, it was great. Just great. Fantastic.
And I just, I'm obviously not a Bears fan, but I was cheering so hard for the Lions last night. And I was very entertained watching that game. Between, the only team that it actually meant anything to was the Packers. And here's Dan Campbell's guys just out there outplaying them all night long. And Dan Campbell's like, 4th and 1. Nope, stay on the field. We're going for it.
It's great.
And they get it, and they've got I don't know if it's like a hook and lateral or what they called that little short pass in the pitch to, I think it was Swift, the running back. It's like, and they convert another first down. It was glorious. It was just glorious.
It was
to see.
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. It was very
Crystal.
entertaining.
Crystal's trying to get me, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. He says, Vince just wishes that the Bears had Rodgers. Not in a million years. Not in a million years. Just like I would never want AJ Pierzynski to play for the Cubs. I never want Rodgers to play for the Bears.
Brent makes a good point. I forgot. You remember the Bears beat the 49ers
yes, they did.
early in the season. I think wasn't that like a rain-soaked game or something? Wasn't there a storm going through?
That was back when there was still life at Hallis Hall. Like there was still a chance that they might be something. It's a long time ago. I barely remember that.
It was. All right. Well, enjoy the national championship game tonight. And again, you can jump on over to the College Football Nation channel. Vince, Brian, who else is going to be there tonight?
Sean, I believe. Not you, the other Sean.
Davis.
Sean Davis.
All right. Well, John Benko with a little volley here at the end. Hartman sealing a 0 because Buckner's going to win the job. Like, hey, may the best man win. Let's see who gets it. It's going
to be great. I think it's legit competition, so let's have some fun with it.
Absolutely. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll have some more college football national championship talk on tomorrow's show. We're going to get into some more, deeper into some Marcus Freeman stuff, kind of grading him out for the season. I think we're going to do that on tomorrow's show with Jesse and I. Vince, I will talk to you Wednesday and talk to everybody else mañana. Hope that you will be here. Hit the like button on your way out and subscribe, rate, and review IB Nation Sports Talk.